The hate list for pass catchers headlined by Michael Pittman, who it feels like he has some real estate on this side of things. 5 straight games with fewer than 12 fantasy points dating back to last season right now, Matthew.
It's been bad, and Anthony Richardson is struggling, obviously, with the accuracy. 47% catch rate through 2 games for Michael Pittman. Previous 2 years, that was over 70%. He's never been a big red zone guy. Through 2 games, he's only got 1 red zone target. Colts are 5th in rush rate inside the 10-yard line. When you get inside the 10, you want to run. They're running, when they get inside. They're giving it to Richardson or JT. They're just not throwing to Michael Pittman. So, for a guy that's had under 5 receptions and under 35 receiving yards in both games this year, averaging less than 5 fantasy points per game, outside my top 25 for the week against a very good Bears defense.
Jaylen Waddle also makes the hate list, Matthew. It's Skylar Thompson time in Miami, which could bump down Jaylen Waddle quite a bit, unfortunately. He's played with Jaylen Waddle before, 11.8 points per game in 3 career games with Skylar Thompson.
Yep. So there's 2 problems. Even with Tua, Jaylen Waddle only had 9 targets across the first 2 games.
Yeah.
So that's a red flag because they were trailing in the entirety, basically, of both those games. They only took the lead very late against Jacksonville in week 1, and then they get blown out by Buffalo. And then the second thing, to your point, Connor, he just hasn't had that rapport with Skylar Thompson, whereas like Tyreek still gets fed. Tyreek's still going to get his targets. It's not going to be probably the same upside for Tyreek, but yeah, some concerns with Jaylen Waddle. He's still Jaylen Waddle, so if you put Jaylen Waddle in your flex, go for it by all means.
He needs
but
one play.
Still, certainly the ceiling is
Obviously,
lower.
small sample size, but he's played 3 career games with Skylar Thompson. He averages under 12 fantasy points per game. Seahawks played better defense under Mike McDonald. They've done a real nice job there so far. Seattle allowing the 3rd lowest completion rate on deep passes as well. Feels like this is a Devon Achane game. They're playing at Seattle, one of the toughest places to play. Mike McDaniel just I want to take pressure off Skylar. I'm just going to try to do motion and swing passes and just run Devon Achane. Raheem Mostert returned to practice on a limited basis as well, so maybe you see both guys out there. Waddle's outside my top 30 for the week.
Much like Waddle, Terry McLaurin also outside the top 30 receivers. Jaden Daniels right now is the lowest average depth of target among all starting quarterbacks. That's hurt McLaurin this year.
He's averaging 4.9 yards per reception, Connor. In fact, only 2 of his 8 catches this year have gained 10 yards or more. Like it is. It's been dink and dunk so far through 2 weeks for Jaden Daniels as well. By the way, and that's something that plays into what Cincinnati does well defensively. Wide receivers facing the Bengals this year have the 3rd lowest average depth of target on the season. Now, some of that's because they played Jacoby Brissett, but still, the fact of the matter is that, Terry McLaurin just hasn't been part of this offense. You heard me talk about Austin Eckler. Literally, Austin Eckler is leading the team in receiving yards. Terry McLaurin outside my top 30. I need to see it, until I can unfortunately trust him.
Even Brian Robinson catching the ball.
Yeah.
It's gone to the running backs, the tight ends.
Zach Ertz. Yeah,
if there's Benson it.
Yeah, but it just feels, it's weird when you watch those games. It just feels like that, it's like that Terry McLaurin's a guy. He's not the main focal point of the passing offense the way that like a CeeDee Lamb might be for Dallas. It's just like, oh, we're going to throw to Noah Brown. Oh, Diami Brown. Oh, Jamison Crowder's out there. And it's just like, here's, this guy who's one of the highest paid wide receivers in the NFL, and he's one of the best talent-wise. And it just, for whatever reason, so far they haven't been able to get him the ball.
Our last one here, Dalton Schultz. Pretty simple here, Jay. He's got below a 10% target share in both games this season, 6 total targets. There's too many mouths to feed. He's not involved.
Yep, ton of mouths to feed. And right now, the Texans, who are 2-0 and they're exactly where they need to be, offense hasn't lit the world up so far. Right now, they're 11th in EPA per players in offense, which is below the New York Jets in terms of efficiency, which might surprise people, given the Jets haven't really been lining it up either. But right now, this offense, it's Nico in the passing game, Joe Mixon when healthy in the run game. They want to run the ball. They've been negative pass rate over expectation the entirety of the Bobby Slowick era. And just if there's going to be a guy who's going to suddenly break out, I would put Tank Dell top of that list for the Texans, and then Diggs, and then Dalton Schultz is he is very much the 4th guy in the passing game.
He's actually the 5th, believe it or not, because Joe Mixon has more targets than Dalton Schultz through 2 games. So he's 5th on the team, and so far through 2 games, you're like, all right, well, fine. He's a mid-tier tight end too, whatever. And you're like, well, so he's probably a touchdown-dependent tight end, like so many tight ends are. Well, this is a guy that doesn't have a red zone or end zone target through 2 games, so anything's always possible in an NFL game, but just in terms of who's most likely to be a touchdown-dependent tight end, there are other guys out there on your waiver wire that are better than Dalton Schultz. I just no confidence at all in Dalton Schultz even in the deepest of leagues. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.